Greetings, one and all. Super Wednesdays here in the Holy Land, Holy Apple, Holy Hilltop here. We are on the 18th day of the month of Sivan, 5780. Welcome all. Today's class is extreme importance, but before I get to the title of our class, I really want to thank our undercover cameraman, Ephraim. And I want to tell you guys that we owe him a lot because he puts in a lot of hours, especially when there's clips from different YouTubes. He puts in a lot of time, and it's all, of course, volunteer. No one's getting a cent. So, first of all, our hats are off. If we had a hat, we would take it off. And also here we have our cameraman here from Tapuach, Mishulam. And we also, a big thanks to them. Without them, there is no class. Okay. God willing, this will probably be a two-part series. It's the uttermost importance. The title, Do BLM. That's short for Black Lives Matter. Man, it's M-A-N. Do JLM. That's Jewish Lives Matter, question mark. Man. Be a man, M-A-N. An urgent plea to American Jewry. Okay, now, you got the BLM and you got the JLM. That I gave away. The M-A-N, right, man, it's not what you think, like, hey, man. No. This is also an acronym. But you have to stick around at the end of the second part where we'll give the solution here. What is that? M-A-N. What does it stand for? Okay. Let's take it from the top. A couple of days ago, an article appeared in the Jewish Journal by Tom Tugent, June 3rd, 2020. LA Jews reeling after local institutions looted and burned in Floyd protests. Okay, synagogues, schools, and Jewish memorials vandalized with anti-Semitic, anti-Israel slogans. Jewish-owned businesses battered, particularly in Fairfax District. Now, I'm starting with this, LA, because, LA, even though I was not born there, I was born in Chicago, but I was a little baby when our family moved out to LA, so I grew up in LA. And, been there, done that. All over. These are a lot of places that mean a lot to me. Places where I grew up, places where when I was a teenager also. So I'm starting with that. Okay, graffiti on the walls of a synagogue read, Free Palestine and F Israel. A statue of Raoul Wallenberg, the Swedish diplomat who saved thousands of Hungarian Jews from the Nazis, was smeared with anti-Semitic slogans. Along with synagogues, Jewish-owned buildings, stores were defaced, in several cases also with anti-Semitic graffiti. Businesses were looted too. The city's Fairfax District, a heavenly Jewish area that has been continuously represented by a Jewish city councilman since 1953, was particularly hard hit by this kind of vandalism. The attack on our community last night was vicious and criminal. Paul Koritz, the district's current city councilman, said in a statement Sunday, as we watched the fires and lootings, what we didn't get covered, what they did not cover, the press, were the anti-Semitic hate crimes and incidents. Under the guise of protests, some advanced their anti-Semitic agenda. Across the street from Bet El, the kosher Mensch bakery and kitchen, and the Jewish-owned clothing store Go Kosher were destroyed. Stores on the fashionable Melrose Avenue on the district's northern border also were damaged, as were multiple Jewish institutions in the area. Congregation Beth Israel, Congregation Tiferet Avi, Morashah Educational Center, Shari Tefillah Synagogue. My bar mitzvah was there. Celebration. And the Shalhevet School for Girls, according to Aram Goldberg, Vice President of the Jewish Federation Council. Israeli-born philanthropist and activist Adam Milstein, who lives in LA, concurred. The Jewish community is in denial. Listen to those words, denial. The fact that synagogues got tagged and Jewish businesses were looted with signs saying "Free Palestine" and "Kill the Jews" is not a coincidence. The rioters are Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and they are inherently anti-Semitic. Some of the synagogues damaged as a result of vandalism, graffiti, and looting by protesters include Congregation Kehilas Yaakov, also known as Rabbi Gershon Bess Shul, know it well. The Tiferet Tzvi, Rabbi Gansweig, friend of our family for many years, of blessed memory, on Beverly Boulevard in the Fairfax district. Elders of Zion, a pro-Israel activist, recorded clips of some of the damage done to the synagogues in the Fairfax area. Continuing, folks, in LA, this is by Daniel Greenfield. He has a great blog. He's a talented writer. David Greenfield, Sultan Knish blog. Check it out, the Sultan Knish blog. After the end of the Jewish holiday Shavuot, the Jewish people joyfully commemorate the giving of the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. The Jewish community of LA concluded the holiday, by the new ritual of going to clean off the hateful graffiti from their houses of worship while picking up the broken glass from the black nationalists and radical leftists. Night of Broken Glass. Yeah, might sound familiar from Germany. The Night of Broken Glass in LA. At the latest count, at least 5 synagogues in the area were vandalized, as were 3 Jewish schools. One would think the hateful vandalism of eight Jewish institutions and a mob screaming slurs after trashing Jewish businesses would lead to some sort of meaningful response. But that would be the optimistic perspective of people who haven't experienced the unmitigated level of cowardice and appeasement that compromises Jewish institutional life at virtually every level. Hard words, true words, unfortunately. In June, my inbox has been littered with massive, from assorted literature, from assorted Jewish organization institutions, and even shamefully synagogues, some good and some bad, wringing their hands over Floyd's death and timidly condemning violent responses while failing to mention the racist attacks on Jewish businesses and institutions by supporters of the anti-Semitic BLM, Black Lives Matter group. While a few national organizations condemned the F Israel and Free Palestine graffiti on one synagogue, that has been the extent of it. Not only the Reform and conservative movements, but the modern Orthodox movements have largely remained silent about the defacement of synagogues and the destruction of Jewish businesses. The OU press office put out a release which mentions racism 4 times, and the vandalized synagogues and businesses not at all. Folks, if you thought you're in good hands, that the organizations, the synagogues, Reform, Conservative, Modern Orthodox, if you thought the leaders of various Jewish organizations will come for your assistance, to your assistance, wake up. Major synagogues in the LA area have piously condemned racism, but not the hatred that deface synagogues and schools. Not only have Jewish organizations failed to call out the anti-Semitism of Black Lives Matter, they've effectively jumped on its hateful cause. They're hitchhiking with them, and they have maintained a hushed silence about the devastation wreaked on the Jewish community. The same folks lecturing us on the dangers of remaining silent in face of hate and silence when the hate is directed to the Jews. That is the sad legacy of American Jewish civil rights activism, which fights anti-Semitism by joining together with anti-Semites to fight racism. You don't fight anti-Semitism by running away from it, and certainly not by running towards it. Decency and self-respect alone compel us not to remain silent. And if we do remain silent while chanting the cause of those who vandalized our houses of worship and shops, we will have neither decency nor respect. We will have become as contemptible in our own eyes as we already are in the eyes of Black Lives Matter's pogromists, who did this knowing that there would be no response. Well, it's in this week's portion that we're going to read in 2 days. Unbelievable. We were grasshoppers in our eyes, and that's how we were perceived by others. When you act like a grasshopper, baby, that's how you're perceived. Fighting anti-Semitism doesn't mean launching educational programs. No. It means, as Mordechai told Esther, story of Purim, if you remain silent now, salvation will come to the Jews from some other place, and you and your father's house will perish. Those that are silent, they will perish. All those many generations ago, the Jews faced genocide because one stubborn old sage, Mordechai, refused to take a knee before a brutal thug and abandon the aspirations of his people. A Jewish organization or synagogue that takes a knee before brutal thugs and refuses to speak up when Jews are attacked is not worthy of claiming to speak for Jews and is not worthy of Jewish support or loyalty. Thank you, Daniel. Couldn't have said it better. The sheep have arrived. The sheep, maybe they had never left us. Let's take a look at this despicable clip of an interview with a Jewish Orthodox businessman who had his store pharmacy in the Fairfax area looted. Check it out.
Speaking to us from Los Angeles is Jonathan Friedman, a store owner from Los Angeles, a store which was ruined during the riots. Shalom.
Hi, how are you?
We're okay. How are you? We see the videos of the ruins, the riots. How was this experiencing this from up close?
Motzei Shabbos, when we went out, we were boarding up my store and a bunch of other stores, a bunch of Jewish people getting together and just helping each other out. We are watching people go from store to store, looting the stores. Motzei Shabbos, there was close to no police around, and for sure none of them doing anything. And it was wild. It was crazy. There was no enforcement whatsoever, and you had all the small businesses in the neighborhood being their whole livelihoods being stolen out of their front of their stores by these people with no regard for anything.
Was there any direct confrontation?
A few of them approached us to try to, test the waters and see if they could, get either some of our into our store or get some things. But they weren't confrontational. At one point, one of them did go into a Jewish store across the street, and we right away went and made sure that he left right away. The police actually saw us doing this and refused to get involved. They said that they couldn't help us, which was shocking because, here you have 5 Jews trying to protect another Jew's store, and this other guy that's just looking to steal, and the police just said, "Sorry, sir, we can't help you tonight," which was shocking. I mean, you're living in a very big city like LA. It's not a common response.
Okay. We spoke a few minutes ago. How does the world perceive Jews? How does the world perceive Jews? Our dear Rabbi Kahana used to tell us always that if you want to know the heartbeat, if you want to get and feel the heartbeat of what the world thinks about Jews, you got to go to the heart. The heart is the bar. Go to one of the bars. Sit down with the boys, with the gals. Order some drinks for everybody. And when the booze goes in, the truth comes out, as we are told by our sages. And then bring up Israel. Bring up Jews. Oh, let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. Folks, maybe this is like more updated than going into a bar, but I have a little bit of a different way of feeling the pulse of the world. How do they perceive the Jewish people? Telling you, I was always, when I grew up, I loved like acronyms, and I would love like different words that you'd have to like, what do they mean? You wouldn't find them in a regular dictionary, It's the people on the streets, the nation, the real people, not the people that live in these, glass towers, but the real people of the world. And I would always try to understand their language, get to know their expressions. So sometimes, till this day, when I see various expressions, I didn't know what to do. How am I going to be able to decipher these expressions? During the riots in the last couple of days, you see a lot of stuff on the walls. What does that mean? So eventually, I got to this amazing dictionary. It's called the Urban Dictionary. It's like the Mercedes-Benz of the street talk. Understanding the people of the streets. So I did the work, and I put in there in the search engine, I put the word Jew. Folks, I will read to you right now. Okay, but you got to put on that seatbelt because we don't have insurance here. I will read to you some of the expressions to understand what many people of the world, many populations of the world, how they perceive the Jewish people. Not good news for them Jews. Okay. Jude. To be Jude is to be ripped off. Judar. That's Jwdar. Detecting if any Jews are around before speaking. Judar. Like a radar. We want to make sure when we speak freely about the Jews, we don't want Jews around to hear what we really think about them. Jude over. Jude over. Something bad happened to you. Jew. Jew. To cheat somebody. Jew. To cheat someone. Another spelling of Jude, to be screwed. Honeydew. Sounds kind of like positive. Don't get your hopes up, because it ain't. Honeydew, white, trashy, Jewish girl. Honeydew. Nigger Jew, steals something from you, then tries to sell it back to you at a higher price. That's a nigger Jew. Once again, those aren't words that I would use. These are in the Urban Dictionary, and that is what, okay, that is what it means. So that is an amazing. You don't have to go to bars anymore. You don't have to buy people drinks. You save all this money. Save all this money here. Give a donation to tzedakah, to charity. Okay, we've seen more and more Jews demonstrating, joining, supporting BLM, Black Lives Matter. Let's take it away. An article from the Jewish Week. A Minnesota rabbi, I think his name is Rabbi Avi something, has changed his mind on BLM. I believe in equality. These are the words of the rabbi of Minnesota. In Minnesota. I believe in equality and equity. I fight against racism. I believe every human being is created in God's holy image. And yet, I previously grimaced when I heard the rallying cry, Black Lives Matter. I grimaced really for one reason only. The stance the movement for Black Lives platform took on Israel back in 2016. The comprehensive document referred to Israel as an apartheid state and condemned the United States for its alliance with Israel and being complicit in the genocide taking place against the Palestinian people. Oh, where's the Kleenex when you need it? Yeah. Genocide, got that one? Such rhetoric broke my heart. For the past 4 years, every time I saw a BLM placard, I shuddered at the anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish themes it raised for me. It evoked a generation-old rift between the Jewish and black community, one that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel so vehemently tried to repair over 50 years ago. Anyways, he goes on, today he has changed his mind on the Black Lives Matter. By the way, we will see the problem does not start from 2016. That's like not knowing the history of the BLM before that. But we will see that. Next, this is from the Jewish Journal, sometime in the beginning of June. In June, you see a picture somewhere on, I think, 3rd Avenue or Fairfax. On Sabbath, you see a Jew on Sabbath going out. He has a little blackboard that he wrote there, Jews for Black Lives. Here's what one Jew, desecrating Sabbath. I guess that will give us a lot of points for our side. Desecrating the Sabbath, a Jew. Here's his words. Today, Jews need to support Black Lives Matter. Tomorrow we'll talk about Israel. First things first. We need to support Black lives. BDS or not. Because, well, first they came for the blacks and I did nothing. Jews for Black Lives Matter. Friend of our family live in Maryland. I got this email from her. Listen to the words closely. Crazy revolution going on here. Protest today at 6:30 p.m. at high school by Kemp Mill Orthodox neighborhood. I hope to God this does not spill over as a pogrom against synagogues and stores and Jews. I think I better call the police, but they're probably too busy to protect Jewish communities. Yes, Bethesda, it's a neighborhood in Maryland. Stores are boarded up before the protests. DC, Washington, clamping down so protests moving to our liberal state and our liberal brainwashed public schools. So many Jews, listen closely, clean your ears. So many Jews, including Orthodox Jews, posting in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, which is virulently anti-Jewish and anti-Israel as part of their platform. I think I better tell my kids to come, this must be her married kids, to come to me. They live too close to the protests with a lot of blacks in their neighborhood. Who knows? There is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Goes on. Beth Shalom Congregation and Talmud Torah Religious School, presented by NCSY and JSU. Now is a time to listen and to learn. Join the Orthodox Unions, NCSY and JSU teens as they come together in solidarity with the black community to listen and learn about race and racism. We stand together against all forms of hate and bigotry. And then they give the lists of Minister Clemens James Jr., and a few rabbis, Rabbi Moshe Hauer, incoming executive vice president of the OU. That prompted our friend in Maryland to shoot off an email. Attention rabbis, there are 4 rabbis here that are mentioned, I guess in that area. NCSY, JSU, Beth Shalom tonight in solidarity with black community. Not to discount the importance of anti-racism and not to discount that many protesters are peaceful, but recent events and recent and long-term history have shown us that unrest and events have a way of turning against the Jews from all sides, left, right, and center. I'm sure you as rabbis know that Black Lives Matter, the main movement in the protests, has its platform and coalition, disturbing anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, BDS elements. And now, with the BLM, demands on disbanding, defunding the police, the lack of sufficient law and orders is additionally dangerous for everyone. Go to the BLM site on the net, and they have there a movement within to defund and disband the police. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Jewish events. Where are these rabbis when Jews are being targeted? Where are these Jews in the last year, the highest rate of anti-Semitism? Most of them cannot be found until it comes to a nation of the world cause. From the Israel Today English edition, listen closely. Listen what a mess we're in, folks. For American Jews, the violent riots constitute a challenge on several levels. First, there is a challenge of squaring their political identity with their Jewish identity. As the 2014 Pew survey of American Jews showed, around half of American Jews identify as progressive. As progressives, many American Jews share the views of their non-Jewish progressive counterparts regarding the need to prioritize the interests of minority communities over their own interests. Jews do not come first. Other minorities come first. But the Jews' progressive desire to work on behalf of those demonstrating for African Americans places their political identity on a collision course with their Jewish identity. BLM, the radical group leading the demonstrations, is an anti-Semitic organization. BLM, listen closely, not 2016. BLM was formed in 2014 as a merger of activists. Where did they come from? They did not start in 2014. The BLM started. But they came from organizations, and those organizations go back dozens of years. What organizations were they that joined together to establish this BLM? Listen closely. NOI, Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, the anti-Semitic Black Panthers, and the Dreamcatchers. In 2016, BLM published a platform that has since been mysteriously removed from its website. The platform accused Israel of committing genocide and referred to the Jewish state as an apartheid state. The platform also accused Israel and its supporters of pushing the U.S. into wars in the Middle East. The platform also officially joined BLM with the anti-Semitic BDS campaign to boycott, divest, and sanction against Israel. BDS campaign leader Omar Barghouti acknowledged this week that the goal of BDS campaign is to destroy Israel. BDS campaigns on U.S. campuses are characterized by bigotry and discrimination directed against Jewish students. BLM's platform publication was greeted with wall-to-wall condemnations by Jewish organizations from across the political spectrum. But today, Jewish progressive are hard-pressed to turn their backs on the group despite its anti-Semitism. As white progressives, they believe they must fight America's structural racism, even at the cost of empowering social forces that reject civil rights as Jews. As Jews, they feel their rights should be protected. One progressive Jew tried to square the circle, writing in the LA Jewish Journal, Today Jews need to support BLM. Tomorrow we'll talk about Israel. Okay, let's get a few things straight here. Real clear. Torah. How does the Torah deal with the blacks, African Americans, whatever you want to call them? Personally, my experience with the black community, the African American community. Okay, so let's take it from the top. First, the Torah. Let's understand exactly what we're talking about. There's nobody here that's a racist. There's nobody here. We're not out for blacks. There's plenty of white trash, and there's plenty of black trash, and there's plenty of Mexican trash. Okay? And there's also a lot of Jewish trash. So, what is the Torah's outlook on blacks? Number one, we see in the beginning of the Torah, one of Noah's three sons, his name was Ham. Maybe it's, in English it's Ham. This son of his was black, as is written in the Talmud tractate Sanhedrin 108b. Ham, he was the father of sons such as Cush, which means black in Hebrew, and also Canaan, the Canaanite nations that lived in the land of Israel before the times of Joshua, also in the times of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As you could find all this information in Genesis 10:6. Number 2, our leader, the greatest prophet of all times, Moses. We just read in Israel, we just read 4 days ago from the Torah that Moses was married to a black woman. Now, it is true that our sages have various takes on what does it mean, black. However, the simple meaning brought down, for example, by the Abarvanel, or by the Ibn Ezra, or by the Yalkut Shimoni on 168. We're talking here about a black woman. Not only that, when Moses escaped from Egypt, he escaped for about 60 years. And he was in, according to this Yalkut Shimoni source, 168, he was there for 40 years. He also married a black woman from the land of, must be African lands. Okay, so we do not have problems with people because their skin happens to be a different color. It does not interest us. We don't care. We care who you are. Joshua, who followed Moses, he was the next leader. Joshua comes to the land of Israel. Almost 3,400 years ago, Joshua and the Jewish people, they come into the land of Israel. Joshua marries a woman named Rachav. Maybe it's Rahab in English. She was from the nation, the Canaanite nations. According to the most commentators, she was from the Canaanite nations. We said that Canaanite, they were blacks. They were blacks. Joshua, just like Moses, was married to a black woman. Also, Joshua goes out and marries a black woman. Hey, what about her color of skin? We don't care. Okay, we don't care. You're good. You keep the laws of Noah. You're an upright person. You don't hate Jews. You don't hate Israel. It's fine. Not only that, we are told in the Talmud, Megillah 14, side B, that from this union of Joshua and Rachav, they had descendants, not immediately, but grandchildren or great-grandchildren, 8 prophets. Now, if there's a derogatory look at black people, you wouldn't have prophets come from this union of Joshua with Rachav. So this is our guiding light, how we look at people of different colors. They don't have to necessarily be black. We look at them in a positive light. Personally, let's get a few things also on a personal level. In high school, I lived in a black neighborhood. I love these people that they live in their little suburbs. They live in their little glass towers. They live in their, protected neighborhoods. And if they want to come to me and, tell me something about, how they're supporting the black communities from a distance. I grew up in a black neighborhood. So don't tell me about when you're little suburbians with your little protests. It's number one. Number two, my favorite music was black music. In fact, the only concerts, believe it or not, the only concerts that I have ever been to were concerts of funk music. That's like, it's even on a higher level of soul. It's the only concerts I went to were concerts that were by black, total, all black singers. That was the music that I love. That is, when I was in high school, that's what I listened to. And there aren't too many people like myself, that Bootsy Collins, Funkadelic, George Collins. I mean, these are names from when I was a kid. I once took my sister, I'm sure she remembers this, Debbie. We went down to there was like one or two black soul stations in Los Angeles at the time. I don't know how many there are today. On the radio, this is days of the radio, the dinosaur days. I took her down because I wanted her to meet the DJ at this K-Day. That was it. Whoa, it came back to me. K-Day. Yeah, all black music. So I don't need to be lectured about African Americans or black people. More. Personally, my family, we were able to arrange for a African American kid in maybe 7th grade at the time to enroll him in a Jewish Torah school. We were able to get him in to a Torah Jewish school, and more power to the school. It was Hillel Hebrew Academy that agreed to accept him without any problem and without any money. Think about how much tuitions cost. They brought him into the school without a dime. That our family helped this young African American get into this Jewish school. And last but not least, I've never said this on camera. I haven't told this to too many people, but one day at my house, these two brothers run into to my house, and they told my dad that their mom was being raped and beaten up by this person's partner. So my dad told me to come with him, and we ran across the street, and thank God we were able to stop this disgusting scenario of this drug addict. And now that I think about it, years later, my dad of blessed memory, that was mighty courageous, because he could have easily pulled something out on us, and that would be the end of us. That was pretty courageous of my dad. My dad said, "Here, I might need some help. Come with me." I was maybe 15 at the time. And we ran over, didn't ask any questions because your skin is black. We ran in there to help out. So I don't need any lectures. Okay, with that said and done, okay, we will call this our first class. First class, yeah. God willing, we will come soon with the second part. We will start the next class, class number 2, will start with a question mark. Do black lives matter? Do they really matter? Question mark. We'll tackle that issue, God willing, soon, maybe even before next week. Till then,